Third game of this over the board tournament, and of course, we're already facing the 150 attack against our Pirc Defense. And I think you're going to like this video because my opponent actually went from this hyper aggressive setup to simply castling to the king side. And I know that a lot of you have asked about it, and I've told you more or less, but here you're gonna see a game with that idea. So let me go from the beginning. Of course, we're playing Pirc Defense. From here, they could play the classical lesson 69. They could play the Austrian lesson 73. They could play Bern lesson 90 something, and so many other systems that we already covered. Now, my opponent plays Bishop E3. And of course, I told you any indication that they're going to play aggressively, we play this C6. Then Queen D2, Pawn to B5, and you're going to see that even though I'm not playing the same moves that I told you guys on lesson 70, I'm keeping the same idea. Back then, I told you play Queen A5 and then Knight B6, Knight C4, which is okay. But guys, like I've told you on lesson 204, there's so much to this opening that I have learned that I cannot put it in one video, right? But one thing is for certain, I have told you to review master games. One of the main players that I follow is Mamedyarov, Grishuk. These guys, they're super GMs. They play the Pirc Defense. I have to look at their games. Now, Mamedyarov typically plays it like this. So I said, you know what? I'm going to play like him. So the point here is I'm not playing that plan I told you, but I'm keeping the ideas, the essence. I told you already how to study openings, how to memorize them, and this is the most important thing to understand the ideas. So the main thing here is I don't want to castle so early because then they have a clear plan. So I'm just getting ready for a crazy attack on the queen side. But in here, my opponent said, I'm going to go quiet. Well, only now that that king is already committed to the king side, this attack is not going to be so powerful. So I'm going to castle myself. My opponent says, wait, I'm going to do bishop h6. I say, great. And now we simply go ahead and play from here. Quiet possession, it looks a lot like the classical setup, and we just play chess. Everything that we have learned up to this point in the course, all of the strategy lessons, we're going to put them in here. Next move, pawn a4. Of course, I don't want to open up the file for the rook, so I advance and continue to gain space on the queen side. Knight goes to e2, and now pawn to c5. Guys, we need to play energetically. They gave us an edge, we're going to take it. c4 is in the air, trapping the bishop, so they need to play either c3 or d takes c5. My opponent took on c5, and now I have three options. I remember in the game, I'm thinking queen c5 seems one of those moves that they don't look like the move, but they might be the most powerful move, but I did not do it, right? Now, the engine says queen c5 is the right way to go, so this is for me to remember in the future. Now, knight c5, I did look into it because I'm thinking they take, maybe I could do something like rook b8 and putting pressure on e4, but I just didn't like this queen c3 move, pinning me and defending and so on. So I just took with the pawn, renewing the threat of pawn c4, then pawn to c3, and of course, pawn to c4. Here I'm thinking, this bishop, I'm going to try to bury it back here, right? So if they go to c2 first, I play b3. If they go to b1, I play e5. And that bishop is not going to play in a while. Of course, easier said than done. But anyways, c4 was played. Bishop b1 right away. They didn't let me put the pawn here with a tempo. Also, if they had done this, now this pawn is not going to have the support of of the other pawn, right? So I could eventually put pressure on it. So instead, bishop went directly to b1. And now, guys, I went knight to c5. Like I told you in the other game that we reviewed, the other video, the engine didn't like this move, but I honestly don't care because it seems so natural, guys. I'm going to b3. I'm improving my knight. I'm hitting e4. But anyways, knight c5 was played. My opponent plays e5. And now knight f to d7. Putting pressure on the pawn. I'm still threatening to go to b3, and my opponent plays knight d4. So of course here I have to calculate, do I want to take, do I want to advance, do I want to take? I ended up deciding to just take on e5. My opponent takes, queen takes, c takes before, and this next move is the move that made me go for this variation. Of course, try to post a video, see if you can find it, but basically right before, guys, when I chose to just take, I realized this file was going to be open, and this is a very powerful pin. At this point, we have to be better. Let me see. The engine says, well, actually, the engine says 0.82 for black, so not so bad. And of course, my opponent plays the top move for that the engine recommends, which is knight to c6. Of course, we had to consider this, so I knew that at this point, I have to be better, guys. Now, I was looking at moves like rook a2. I was looking at moves like knight c4, and I just come here to attack both pieces, but my opponent played bishop e4. Now, I need to consider taking the rook, they take mine. I didn't like the fact that this knight stays in the center, hitting my pawn, so I said, you know what? Let me go rook b8. Again, if they take on c4, rook d4, attacks the knight, attacks the rook. So my opponent now goes knight to c6. Now, this is what I was waiting for. It's not the same. Again, if they take me with the bishop, knight stays in the center. Then, now when I took on a1, look at this. The knight is completely out of the picture. Mine is 2, but after knight b3, I gotta say my pieces are in a better position. Now, here, my opponent plays rook e1. It has to be a mistake. And automatically, my evaluation is 4.23. So this is completely winning now. Why? Well, I take on b2, and this is a passed pawn. Guys, still, we need to be careful. So many games we have blown because we get overconfident and we play fast. So we need to stay put. Now, after I took the pawn, I got f3. I'm saying, fine, I'm going to push. But first, I need to understand what could my opponent do. Well, after c3, rook e3 is in the air. And luckily, I had knight d4. So my knight gets away. They cannot take because of the fork. And the thing is that if I had done this, I had calculated, okay, of course, they have this, and then we lose the knight, right? So, oh, we lose the pawn actually, the passed pawn. So luckily we had knight d4, my opponent plays b5, and now simply pawn to c2. Here, I almost didn't play c2. I was looking at bishop f5, and actually the engine recommends this as the top move. Considered f5, but then I looked at it again, I'm like, no, c2 works, because the thing is that if they played something like rook c, was it rook? What is it that rook c3? Yeah, I think rook c3. No, it was not rook c3. Was it rook e1? I think rook e1. Okay, yeah, rook e1 I was calculating. If this move happens, well, they take and nothing, right? But I realized that if rook e1, I have either knight e2 and then c1, or c1 first and then knight e2. So of course, when my opponent, after c2, my opponent just gave me the bishop, and that's the whole point of the powerful passed pawn. Sooner or later, they have to give you something for it. Now here, again, I know my opponent could get counterplay after taking on e7, then taking on a7. So I need to make sure my pieces stay as active as possible. So should I take with the rook or with the knight? I took with the rook so that my knight is in the center. Then rook e7, I go after the pawn, they take mine, and then another pin. So we take on b5, and now I knew, guys, there's no way I'm going to lose this. An isolated pawn, I got bishop, knight, and rook. I'm not going to lose it, but I need to stay put. Things could go south any moment. So rook a5, time to move the knight, and I'm thinking, where do I put it? Well, I want my knight to be able to contain that pawn, also to help me go towards the king if necessary. So knight d6, rook a7, I guess I don't want my bishop to get involved, but still, knight c4, I'm not allowing them to play a5, and after knight c6, this is a very important moment because I was so close to just finding a way to activate the bishop and focus on that pawn not going anywhere. But then I said, you know what? I have plenty of time. What if I go for the king? Knight and rook, we know is very powerful, especially if the bishop joins. So I was thinking a5, I take, then bishop h3, and after rook f2, there is checkmate. My opponent, instead, after knight a3, my opponent goes g4 so that the bishop doesn't come into the attack. But now, guys, see if you can find the final idea to make your opponent resign. Well, very simple, I know, but check, and then we go back, hitting the knight, threatening checkmate. So again, my opponent didn't play very accurately, but what matters, guys, is that you get to see this idea in a game, right? They just castle quietly, even though they wanted to go aggressively, and then we just play chess from this moment on. Look at this, castle is marked as a great move, and the idea is we put the king in safety, we're not so concerned about this attack. So with that said, guys, let me know in the comments if you're enjoying these games, if we should stop just reviewing the tournament games, or maybe just go on to what we were doing before. With that said, I will see you in our next video.